So we were talking about the 1 on the Enneagram. Glad you showed up.
Okay. Glad to be here.
So 1, for me as a 7, when I view a 1, I tend, probably not the right way to say this, but I try to tell 1s, hey, don't play the victim. Is that a bad thing to say?
That is a bad thing to say.
Okay. But I feel like they just kind of have this victim mentality. It's like everybody's out to get them. And I'm like, hey, we're trying to make the company better. This has nothing to do with you.
Yeah. The goal is always just to be curious and seek to understand what's going on.
Yes.
That's the best bet for anybody to address somebody that's kind of not performing or even being a problem. Just kind of say, well, what's going on here? And if you know their Enneagram type, you have some ideas of things to look for or what's causing this tension or this lack of whatever.
Yes. So for 1, so like when we create one of my first things that we do now for a new position or we're hiring a position, create the job description. And now we're going to go and we're going to number the type that would be great at this position, right? The ideal. And so for me, for a 1, it's anything that takes a lot of organization, but doesn't involve talking to a lot of people. Is that right to say? I mean, you don't want them having to critique or have, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're probably not going to make the best managers.
I always, as a 9, generalities, I'm always like, well, there are a few that you see them this way, listen to them. There's a lot of truth to that. On the whole, generally that is true. Right. And so
they do have a tendency to take most of the workload on themselves. If you go back to your schooling days.
They do not delegate very well.
No, they, the group project, they're going to take it over and then they're going to be resentful because resentment is their deadly sin.
It's really funny.
And so they're going to sit and just be resentful of everybody. And it's that anger that they're suppressing, right?
Yes.
And so you have to be really careful what you put them in charge of and who you put them to work with.
Yes. So it's funny because both of my financial controllers in 2 of my companies are both 1s and both do great job at the money side of things and the reporting. Both of them have an assistant or have had an assistant, and every week I'm like, why are you still doing this? Why is this person just sitting there right next to you? Like,
they won't do it perfect.
Yes. And I'm like, I'm not hiring this person to be your friend. I'm hiring this person so we can grow and scale. Give them stuff to do, or I'm going to find somebody else to give them stuff to do, or I'm going to let them go, So I kind of like force that, but it doesn't make sense to me, right? Because to me, I'm like, okay, you can do it, 70% as good as me. Great. Let's go. Let's move on.
You're moving fast.
Yes. Moving fast.
Yeah.
And that is a big one. So the 1s, when I would go on vacation and come back and be like, all right, we're changing things up. That does not go well with the 1. Stability. They need stability. If it's done, they feel good. You don't want to just rock the boat all the time. And so I definitely have learned that.
Yep.
So just jumping in here,
and
I'm so glad you guys are here. Thank you.
It's great
for being here.
You start by introducing yourself and your Enneagram type.
Okay, well, first off, I did want to ask, since we're on the topic of a 1, as the husband of a 1, how do you fix a 1? How do you...
I have a sheet for you if you want me to leave it with
How do you work,
what I would say,
through that?
Let them cook. Get out of the way.
Well, you already heard. I just tell them, don't be the victim. Okay? Don't play the victim.
I'm seeing the anger here, and so this says avoidance. I'm not seeing a lot of avoidance of anger. I'm seeing a lot of embracing of anger. So
but they get more angry with themselves.
Oh, correct.
And so that is where you have to be really careful. And so what I always advise people when you're communicating with a 1, like some big things for you, they want you to communicate by saying exactly what you mean.
Okay.
He's taking notes.
I'm going to write this down.
Saying exactly what you mean, because if you come at them with these roundabout things, like I tell leaders all the time, or people, like, hey, your boss is a 1. Don't send them the flowery email with all of the extra words and all of the stuff.
Yes.
This is what I want. Okay. This is what I mean. Okay. You have to do that. Be really straightforward and be honest. But you also always have to keep in mind that they are their biggest critic and they do not need your help.
And that's funny because most managers a lot of business owners and managers might be like a 7 on the Enneagram or an 8.
3
or 7 for sure, but like the 7 wants to avoid conflict, and so when it's time to reprimand, they'll go and like have like a 30-minute conversation.
Yes.
Not getting to the point.
Yes.
Right. And I'm like, that is the worst way to fire somebody. Like don't talk to them about their weekend and then fire them. All right. Yes. But like it's just like hey, I'm not happy. We got to move on.
Yep.
But yeah. So
okay. So back to my original question.
yeah.
What if you want to criticize?
Hypothetically,
if you want to criticize a 1, what's the best way to do it?
Affirm. I see you. The work you're doing great. This is one thing I'll bring to your attention. Some clarity there.
Okay.
And then it's the sandwich.
A sandwich.
And then affirm on the back end.
I'm just so excited to see how you're going to do with this. I mean, you're going to be great. You're going to be great.
Because they are so critically on the inside of themselves.
Right.
And so you don't want to be that voice, carrying that voice on, but you got to, come with what the problem is.
So I guess, and Leighton, to spoil it, obviously, I consider myself a 3, I think.
Yeah.
But, that person being their own worst critic, which is 100% true, but sometimes you want them to see another area that maybe they've missed with that spotlight.
Oh, yeah.
Like, hey, what if we look over here?
Yep.
And so that's a fine dance.
It is that gentle encouragement to actually lighten up. Like Leighton said it kind of harshly. So if he said it the way, whatever your phrase was to the 1, that's going to crush them. But you can gently encourage them. Hey,
it's going to be okay.
Lighten up. Like,
I think that
through this, like we have these things, laugh at yourself. Yeah. Like it is okay to laugh at yourself. Yeah. It's okay to mess
I think that
up.
some of it's just self-awareness. So like for me, most of my employees or whatever, they didn't read the books, right? They don't know.
They don't care.
And so, but I can sit down and say, hey, here's why you're frustrated. You're actually a 1 on the Enneagram, right? So what a 1, they see things in black and white.
Yeah.
This area is gray, right? We're working with a lot of 7s and 8s and 3s, right? They're going to rub you the wrong way. So it's just bringing it to light,
Yeah, I read a book recently called Managing Leadership Anxiety. And the principle is that normally the least anxious person in the room controls the room. And so a 1, when things are not in order, can become very anxious. And one of the best things you can do is not let their anxiety become your anxiety.
Yeah.
That's what we tend to do, right? That's why I hate conflict. So if you come in, just like Leighton said, and you help them see the world as they see the world. Every person that you help do this, they just begin to, like, the walls come down.
Yeah.
They can receive feedback then.
Yeah.
But if we don't do that, let them be seen, heard, affirmed in some level, those walls are going to be up, and it's going to be tough to kind of have change happen.
Yeah. Like, so for me, when I would hire a 1, this happened within the past year, and I'm like, this new initiative for me, it's like, man, blank slate. What a great position to be in. They get to create.
Yep.
And then I like have a conversation, and then like they are just so stressed out immediately.
Yep.
And then but you know what else I've found about 1s? It's hard for me to get them to take an Enneagram assessment. They tend to not want to.
Well, they're skeptical.
And so twos as well. But it's kind of like, hey, that's still in your email. Why aren't you taking it? And it's like, I don't want to know more about myself. Like,
I'm a robot.
I think one thing, Josh, when you're asking, like, what do I do? Like, making a 1 feel safe enough to ask for help and encouraging to ask for help is super helpful, whether it's with your wife or whether your employees, that they know, like, when I need something, I can actually ask for it, because that is not their tendency. They want to do it themselves. And then they get resentful, because you didn't help them or you didn't do this thing. And so teaching them to voice that, but also making the environment safe enough for them to do that. Is that's marriage and in
it's so frustrating because like I'll hear this like grievance or this like built up animosity, and I'm like, first of all, it's not that big of a deal. And like, second of all, you've been holding on to this, and we could have easily solved this weeks ago if you had just said something. And then, like,
they have to feel safe enough to speak those worries. Like, hey, tell me what you're worried about. And then you can say, hey, this is okay. This isn't that big of a deal. But if you go in saying this isn't a big deal, then they feel undermined and less than from the very beginning, right? And they might get defensive, and that resentment builds.
Yeah.
Just hear their
I have
worries.
some work to do. Okay, I'm not perfect.
And then,
we're all work in progress.
And then, like,
it's just hard to hear. It's hard to hear worries because I'm like, what's next? What's next? Let's
I know,
do it.
you don't want to.
Yeah,
but that
it's
might
funny
be when
too.
you direct them to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny too. My one of the people I have in leadership that's a 1-9, and we have this conversation a lot. Is like, hey, you see these things black and white, not gray. But when he'll come to me with bad news, he'll go, "I know you don't like hearing bad news." And I'm like, "I don't mind hearing bad news."
That's
like,
really funny.
Just maybe have a solution with it. But they do that all the time. We know you don't like to hear bad news, but there's no money to make payroll. Like that's great. I love hearing that. All right. Where are we at?
Going
around?
2? We're going to 2. The helper.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to 2, the helper. What are the highlights and the best things about having a helper on your team?
Oh, well, I'm married to a 2, and so they typically want to get stuff done. They want to be useful. They want to serve. They're normally fine being behind the scenes. They just want to help. They want to make things better. Typically, they want a list. Give me a list of 15 things to do, and I'll get that list done. They don't want to create the process typically. If they have a strong wing 3, they might have the ability to create a process like that. But typically, they're the ones that just want to make things better.
It's funny it's saying that. I was thinking earlier when you said that you compare your type to other people. It's funny when because some of the books I read, they're like, these are the famous people with that type, and I'm like, I don't know these people. But then it's also like, why would I care what an actor's type is when I see them acting? Like, I don't know. It's just weird. Like, you're the same number as Tom Hanks. I'm like, well, didn't look like that when he was on the island. When he was on the island playing with the beach ball.
That's why I play a game whenever I go to businesses and I give them like characters from movies and things like that, and that character. So that thinking about who that character is, Hagrid from Harry Potter would be a great example of a 2.
More witchcraft.
That is
more witchcraft. That's what we've already talked about it.
Satanic symbols.
Which one is Hagrid?
The big guy.
Oh yeah, the big guy
the
with
groundskeeper.
Yeah.
The beard.
Yeah, the beard.
Yeah.
Trying to help, bring in the birthday cakes. And,
I
don't know.
Trying to help everybody.
Yeah. Cool. So what would be some less than ideal situations with having a 2 in your organization?
Their over need to please people can be a problem. They are also the chameleons of the Enneagram, where they so much want to be liked that they adapt to whatever the environment is. So you might not really know who they are because they're just being what they think you want them to be, so that they are liked. And so some of that people pleasing can be a detriment to leadership and to doing the right thing because you're so worried that someone's going to get mad at you or upset with you. And
they get resentful of people who they feel like aren't carrying their weight. If they don't serve or help in the way that they do that, then, what are they doing here? And they get resentful of them.
So like the Mary and Martha.
Mary and Martha, yes, it's true. Mary might be a 7, just worshiping Jesus.
I can relate.
Martha just wants to get the food served. And so, and is getting mad at Mary because he's not serving the food. It's good.
A 2 can also be very emotional. It's in this feeling, this heart triad, right? And so everything is a feeling for them.
Oh yeah, triad.
It all goes back to how does this make me feel? And so those emotions can be a real thing. And a positive is they can be very generous. Now, the problem with a 2, if you get back to some of that childhood stuff, if you didn't feel loved, right? You didn't feel wanted, getting back to your primal questions things even, then you are doing things to help people for the goal of being loved, for the goal of being wanted. And so you're not helping them with like pure intentions. You're helping them because there's something missing in you that you think is going to be filled if you give and do enough for others.
And that's why manipulator is there.
It is a real thing. And so where I tell people, because an 8 will get there, they get a lot of flack right, for their personality. But
that's
to
their
me,
stress is an 8. Is that what you're saying?
But a healthy 8 goes to a 2. And so they really are like the most beautiful because they are helping people just to help people, you know. A 2 is helping people out of a lot of insecurity, out of a lot of need to have people like them and to be loved. And so, you know, it's that health thing.
Now it says
really
when a 2 is stressed, that's they tend to go towards an 8. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And so is that like kind of they're built up?
Yes.
You know, their feelings.
Mama bear comes
their feelings are going to come out, and then you're just standing there. Maybe you didn't pick up a chair. You didn't know you were supposed to pick up the chair.
Exactly. Yes.
And then you're over here getting yelled at. And you're like, wait, what's happening?
I've been doing this for 2 years and no one's helped me.
It's like, well, you never asked to be helped or to get paid or to whatever.
But it goes even that need to defend the outcast, that need to defend. And I've seen this come out when I was a school administrator, that, you know, a kid that is, you know, just being hated by these teachers or these like I am like coming full on into that situation because I feel like this kid is outcast and isn't being loved well. Or I teach classes down at the hub.
Jamie's a 2.
I am a 2. I walked out at the hub, and there were a couple people in my class. Like they sat in my class and listened to me teach for an hour to earn 10 points to be able to buy food. And I walk out and they had tickets from the Shreveport whatever on their cars for $10 for parking in front of the hub to be able to take a class because they don't have enough money to buy food. I lost my mind. I emailed mayors and all these downtown people and like because I just
so injustices are
like,
just
I will lose my mind on that because I just why don't like anyways it's the whole thing.
I think it was that 2-wing one too, where if this isn't fair or right, they will get very upset of the injustice of the world. And I'm like, well, the world's not fair. And so
fairness left in the Garden of Eden. Isn't that what they're saying?
Cross.
In business, 2s are great at they're your connectors, right? If there are people on your staff that are feeling left out or struggling or aren't feeling seen, like a 2 is going to see that. They're going to help connect people. They're going to bring people together. They love to create and those supportive environments and help people to learn and grow.
They also
really do love people.
They also are great. A healthy 2 is great in an office.
Yes,
they are very like an assistant, and I mean they are really
stuff gets
good.
done. They notice things.
They're healthy. It's kind of like when Dwight went to work for Staples and then the plant's dying. You're like, well, he was watering the plants. We didn't even know.
Probably might have been a 1.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, 2-wing.
I don't know.
Can we write a book on the office Enneagram? We should do that.
So Jim's a 7,
or at least one of those little games that pop up on Facebook. Which office character are you?
That's a good one.
You know?
And I could do this for sure. I could do this, but I don't waste our time.
Don't want to waste our time. All right. So are we done talking about a 2? Would we like to move on?
I think one thing with a 2, when a 2 is unhealthy, they're that 8 we talked about. But when they're healthy, they go to a 4. And that is really hard for 2s because a 4 is really just worried about themselves, right? And so for a 2 to be healthy, they have to think about themselves.
Self-care.
They have to get to that point of self-care. And that is really hard for a 2 because they spend their lives trying to help everybody else. And so to put aside what other people think and feel and really think about yourself is really hard for a 2. But that's how you know that they are getting healthier, is because they think about themselves.
I like it. All right, let's go to the 3, the achiever.
The Josh.
The achiever.
Probably the worst of all.
I remember when Josh, I remember our first conversations about Enneagram. I don't know if I told you about a book. I think I might have taken, you were just like, man, I just realized, man, I'm just...
You don't like your number 3 worst type 3?
And I'm just a piece of crap.
I've never heard anyone think that a 3 was the worst.
Like, to me,
I'm pretty sure
I feel like
of it.
if I'm ranking Enneagram type 3 is number 1 to me.
I don't know. And here's why I would
it's
respond
because
to
that's
that.
where you go in health.
Maybe.
That's what you're striving for.
Yeah, that's what you dream about being.
Yes. That's what you think about.
Hero 3.
It's the underpinning or the motivation behind the action. Right. And so when you really dig under the
and that was
three,
your thing, is you're like, man, I'm just so selfish. Like all my actions is to get this glory. Like,
right. It's like you don't really know who you are. You're just sort of, you're trying to achieve something, and your motivations are really murky at best. I feel like in a lot of ways, some of the things that I do, I'm just sort of like shouting into the void, like, hear me, world. I'm trying to chisel something onto rock so that I won't be ultimately forgotten.
Yeah.
And that's the deepest fear, is that, we're all going to be forgotten, and there's nothing I can do about it. Unless I did something like really, really impressive.
Yeah. Well, hey, Bernie Madoff was a 3. So there you go. Bernie Madoff was a 3.
Is that encouraging?
Yeah.
No.
Why don't you go with the encouraging
But we know who he
3
is.
Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is definitely a 3.
I actually think that's not encouraging.
That's not
I think it's very unencouraging.
Because
he's a terrible person.
Oh, okay.
Well, he moved the goalpost, and that's what you see with the 3, right? It's like success.
Yeah.
An unhealthy 3 is going to take a shortcut to successes, right? And we see this a lot in real estate.
Yeah.
Ton of 3s are my top producers.
Of course.
Right? But what they do is, and I have to remind them, hey, your value to me is not your production.
Yeah.
Your worth as a human being is not how many houses you sell. And they nod and acknowledge it, but I don't know if they actually receive those words. Yeah, they don't. And so,
I think that's what people see 3s as these achievers, but for a 3, it's just even the appearance of success.
Yes.
The appearance of achievement. It's not that they actually have to achieve.
Bernie Madoff.
Yes, they just need to make everyone think they have.
Yes.
Sociopaths.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Man, I wish Brooke was here to talk about this.
No, I think I'm on the sociopathic spectrum. Yeah. Maybe like not fully committed, but like I'm,
Well, I think I would say this.
You're way too nice for that.
I think that I would say anybody that is a 3 does have a slippery slope, right? And that's really for all of us. Yeah. But they do have like, wow, I could take this shortcut, and everybody would just be like singing my praise and think I'm successful.
Their deadly sin is deceit.
Yeah.
And when I've said that at businesses,
it's okay, buddy.
Well, people get really upset about that. But a lot of times it's not that I'm lying for the sake of lying, or I even know that I'm lying, or that I'm being deceitful. It is, I need to keep up this appearance, and so I need to say this thing or do this thing that maintains this appearance, not with an intent to hurt anyone else. It is just that I need to keep myself at a certain level, and I need to keep what you think about me at a certain level. So I'm going to say and do these things to maintain that.
Yes, it's image.
Even if it's not...
Yes, they want image, right? And it's crazy when you really know a 3 and you're like, like the true story of their life.
Yeah.
And then they're like making a post and you're like, well, I was actually there for that event. Yeah. And that's not how it went. No, actually somebody did that for you, but or it's like, hey, I was there too. But
I think another thing that, like in the workplace, that people need to be careful of and know about a 3 is that when a 3 is on a task, when they're on a mission, like don't go interrupt them, right? Yeah. Like they want to do that focused work. And so if I'm just like a happy-go-lucky person and you're a 3 and you're like trying to do things and I want to come chat, like you're going to be rude to me and you're going to hurt my feelings, right? Yeah. But if I'm aware of the focus that you have, then I don't take it as personally. And I have such a strong wing 3. I have to tell people this all the time. Like I'm just focused on the task. And it's not that I don't care about you. And people need to understand that in the workplace. Especially if
what
you're
would be
the boss.
what would be a good thing? Because we've talked about this a lot, but at some point during the day, you have to shut it off, right? You have to go home and be dad and husband. So like, what are good practices for a 3, knowing that? I mean, obviously part of it is just self-awareness.
Yeah, one thing is you have to create artificial end times, because a 3 can work all the time.
It's 24/7.
It's 24/7.
Yeah.
And so you have to say, okay, 6 p.m., and I feel like you're good about this. I do, knowing you a little bit.
I don't know.
Maybe not in your head, but you try to in practice, right? Mm-hmm. Well, at 6 p.m., I am no longer Ivy's guy. I'm this guy. That's one of the best practices you need to do, is because you can work all the time if you want to, right? Yes. And so, but that's not a healthy way to live. And so you have to create those times for yourself, and then probably build in some accountability to help you live those things out.
Did you notice we have yard work going? The birds are gone. We have a blower out there now. The blower, the blower is on command. That sidewalk is going to be clean.
You know, I think from me in the self-awareness journey of this, look, at the end of the day, I think threes do have some very attractive traits, like the ability to deeply focus and pound stuff out. Like when that's firing for me, like I'm like, we're just rolling. We're getting stuff done. We're making it happen. It's all good. For me, when I get into a certain circumstance, it's not intentional. It's subconscious, but I feel like I'm turning on. Like lots of times in front of groups of people, right? So like in front of big groups of people, you can just kind of feel yourself like activate, and you don't even mean to do it. You're just like, I'm on, baby. I'm on. Let's go. You know. Yeah. And so those are all, I think, their own little superpowers. The crux of the issue comes down to your self-identity.
Yes.
And that's what you always fight. You always kind of rail against this idea of who am I? Why am I doing this? What am I doing this for? What's my real identity? Mm-hmm. You know, is it father? Is it husband? Is it, business person? Is it, runner, weightlifter, whatever it is. It's just trying to really dial in on your identity, hone it, work on it, and understand that your self-worth is not tied to any particular scoreboard, which is the hardest piece. Yeah.
So it's probably good that your music career had to end.
I'd be dead. I would be dead.
You'd be the music stars like, oh, the songs are good, you don't want to meet them. Right? Anyway, so
but
now...
They are great employees and great leaders, especially because they do ensure success for their team.
And I would say if you have a 3 in the organization, structure incentives... Like that's huge.
Let them go.
Yes, and like tie them into what they're doing. Like the needle they're moving, the more they move it, the more they get compensated.
Absolutely.
Huge.
This sounds bad, but I'm just thinking about this in an incident that happened yesterday when you said good for leadership attached to a business. Like the reason why I feel like our business, hopefully, if the Lord allows, won't fail, is that you would have to kill me. Like you would have to actually kill me for us not to succeed. And what does that say? It's all kind of crazy. But that's the way that I feel. Like I'm not going to let this happen.
So
I think his red flag is really easy for your employees and probably your family to notice. Because when a 3 is unhealthy, they go to a 9. Right? And so they adapt all of those apathetic. So that's how I know, like a 6, you're like Energizer Bunny, Leslie Knope, going. I'm always doing. Yeah. And whenever you see a 3 just sitting back.
Shut it down.
And not doing anything, like, what is wrong?
Yeah.
Like,
is there any meaning?
Happened?
They're defeated.
Yeah, they're defeated.
Yeah.
Right. They're defeated. They're broken.
A really easy red flag.
Okay. Yep. Noted.
Yeah.
My notes keep going.
But when you're healthy, you trust other people, and you can sit back. You don't have to do all the work. You can have these artificial shutdown times, and you can have these things because you trust other people.
Well, that's funny because this morning when he called and said, "Hey, I have an emergency, I have to go," I said, "You go to those?" Because like whenever instances like that happen in my company, I'm like, send somebody or give me take some pictures or whatever.
But for him to trust someone to do something that important in his place, that would take a lot for him. And that's a sign of health, but it's really hard.
If Aaron Barker's listening, let's put that on the agenda.
Yeah, well, listen, I did have somebody great that went. I felt the need to be there too. Mostly symbolic because my skills are pretty. Like, what am I going to do? Fix the truck? Like, no, that's not going to happen.
A wrench right here.
That's right. I just wanted to essentially.
Here I am with my screwdriver.
These guys are working on.
I got my screwdriver right here in my sleeve. Here it is.
You know when you got like 2 guys that know what they're doing and they're like chaining stuff up and fixing stuff, and I'm just sitting here like looking in like kind of.
That's really my entire life, honestly. It's
just kind of. I'm holding. You're holding it with your left hand, and you're like steadying the thing.
Yes.
So what would you say would be your wing? Would you be more of your predominant wing? Because I see both in you. Are you more of a helper or more of an artist?
Well, I have another question down the road about just Enneagram's model and methodology. But ultimately, I think if I don't know, this is so hard. But
what's your question? Let's go to that.
Well,
I can tell you if you want to know.
Okay. What do you mean?
I can tell you what I feel like your strongest wing is, but go ahead.
Please tell me.
I see a lot of wing 4 in you, wing 4 in you, because there's a real depth to you that a lot of 3s don't have.
Yes, a lot of feeling.
A lot of feeling.
Do emotion.
Yep.
Do we need to pull out some Tyler Reed lyrics?
And this being a part of the heart triad, I guess, is a little puzzling for me. But I do think you're right, because ultimately the need for an individualist approach to be recognized as this is my own thing and I've got my stamp and signature on it.
Yes.
That's right. That's such a motivator.
Yep.
And so I feel like that's in there. Now, I can fall victim to people pleasing.
Yep.
You know, I can fall victim to going, look, somebody's got one small complaint. I'm like,
let's fix it.
Done. Fixed.
Yep.
Like, let's take care of you.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. I feel like I'm.
Well, you'll have to go listen to episode 1, but the first part of this, because we did talk about how usually your early adapted wing, you strengthen the other one as you mature and get older, and so you might like when you were a teenager in the band or whatever in your 20s, you might have been real 4, and now you've kind of adapted to be more of a helper.
And both wings in the plane are kind of driving you.
Now
which I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So,
maybe.
Anyways, what's your question about the overall?
Well, there's lots of different ways to slice personality, right?
Yep.
Yes, and there's lots of money to be made doing that, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well put.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jason and I, we share so many similar thoughts and feelings. That's right. That's right. But, so I also like Myers-Briggs.
Yes.
I think Myers-Briggs is a good program. I like the Big Five. Like, I like those things, and they cut things differently.
Yeah.
And so, like, for me, looking at this and seeing heart is really, it feels a little foreign, because Myers-Briggs as an INTP, you're not, you're doing a lot of feeling, but it's on the inside. Mm-hmm. You're not doing a lot of outward expression. You're doing outward expression in the thinking rather than the feeling. So to call it heart feels strange for me, because sometimes I feel almost emotionless in the way that
you experience the emotion of shame often?
Shame?
Going after it, aren't we?
That is this triad, this heart feeling triad. Shame is an overwhelming.
That's why the image is so important. Is that you feel shame for not living up to this perfect standard.
Yeah. So this is my question, because that there are generalizations that are made,
of course,
and some things fit neatly into this boxes. When you're talking about a
sounds like a 4 talking.
Well,
Go ahead.
So here we go.
A 4 that will not be.
Don't tell me what my number is. I am an individual. I'm a number that doesn't even exist on there.
Josh, go ahead and talk, bud.
Thank you. Thank you. So the number 1, I'm like, that's my wife to a T, like perfectly. Yeah. And I listen and I look at her Myers-Briggs, and I'm kind of like, that's getting at it too, a little bit differently. Number 2, that's my mother-in-law, like perfect example. And it's amazing how they're just like side by side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I wonder if there's a connection there about. Like
typically,
the your child or whatever is somehow reacting and responding to who you are, and to see it just right to the next stop is amazing. But there are certain things on here that I do feel, and I'm not just trying to be contrarian, that are hard to grasp. Because where on this Enneagram do you get something like openness to experience? Like, I feel like a real trait of mine and of Jason's is just trait openness. Like, when you talk to Jason, he's so good about going, like, I could tell him, hey, Jason, I feel like I'm like a communist. And he would be like, oh, that's great. Like, let's just unpack what's going on there.
So what kind of communist?
Right. Is this Maoist? Is this Soviet era? Like, where are you coming
you want
from?
My money, particularly. That's right.
Are you sharing ownership of my dog?
Right.
I'm going out of town.
Right.
I'm communist too then.
But that piece that Jason has that
Don't
I
take
really
away my freedom.
Yeah, that I really identify with.
We have fun together
like,
with that.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
We can explore a whole lot of ideological ground. Where does that fit in?
That is your healthiness, right? Because as a 3, you go to a 9 when you're healthy. You go to that 6 when you're healthy and you're like trusting and you're feeling those things. So if you look at it, a 3, 6, and a 9, it's the only one that they go to each other in health. Like, it's the only triangle. The rest of them go different places. And so you and Jason sharing those similarities is because of the way y'all move around that triangle when you're healthy and when you're not, and when you're just being
I think part of it, this is going to sound is maturity and health on some level, because what you're describing to me is the ability to see the world in different ways, which now there's some Enneagram types that make that difficult for them. I think it's hard for a 1 sometimes to see beyond their box, right? But a 3, you kind of live your life in a sense, it can be as a chameleon, trying to like what goes here. That leads you to be an open person. And as a 9, the way I see the world is I see every side of every story.
Yes.
Every side of every story. And it's a blessing and it's a curse. My wife says I'm always playing devil's advocate. I was like, no, I can just see why that person
you have empathy, strong empathy.
Like, and so so I think part of it is just the ability to see the world from different perspectives. And so I don't know if one speaks to that as much as it is just maybe just your health and your maturity.
But even in your healthiest state of that devil's advocate, the ability to see the world in multiple angles, which I think is so important. I mean, but do you sometimes kind of deep down, you're like, you'll see somebody with just this tremendous conviction, and you're deep down a little jealous. Like, I kind of wish I had a little of that, because maybe living life would be easier to a degree. Like Donald Trump, like he's like this way.
His mind is made up
right
on these things.
Right.
And yes,
it's like life would be a little easier if I just.
Well, you know, this is even even as a pastor, you follow the religious areas and pastors, and for me, I hold tight to less things than a lot of other pastors might, and I am typically not jealous of that. Like, I am fine, because this is a whole different thing we're going into right now.
It's just me and Jason going. We're just going at it now.
This is a silver star right now. But where, I just see the world in lots of colors. And I am really okay with that in a lot of ways. I do have convictions about certain things. About who God is, about how to treat others with grace. If there is something that I have conviction about, it's about grace.
Yeah.
And when I see grace not practiced is when I might get a bit like, well, what are we doing here? Like, none of this other crap matters. Yeah. Like, we've received grace, so we're going to receive this. We got to at least show it to others.
So I think I'm having a breakthrough here.
Here we go.
Live. Okay. And the breakthrough feels something like this, is that. And listen, I'm not saying that I want to be like Donald Trump. I'm saying that there are people in this world that you can tell are just very convicted, and they're very convinced of their direction of travel, and they will not be swayed, right? And those people can be forces of nature.
Yes.
But what I'm hearing you say is that your conviction is to the openness.
Yeah. In a lot of ways.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Well, and I am very much not. This is the Enneagram 8 believes they're a change maker. They're a reformer. I don't have much of that in me a lot of times. Like, this is a theological thing. Like, it's not my job to change you. That's God's job to change you. But an 8, they're not okay with that. They want you to, this is probably Trump, if I had to guess. They want you to see the world the way they see the world.
Right.
They want you to think the way they think, and they're going to make this happen. I don't have that bone in my body. Like, I have convictions and I have passions that I will put out there. I'm going to preach it on Sunday, and I will preach with conviction and passion for those things. But ultimately, I don't change people. I mean, y'all see it in your own lives, don't you? Like, we don't really change people. We help people. We encourage people. We point people. But I don't have that, maybe the conviction is the right word. Like, it's on me to change you. And so.
Right.
Yeah. So we've hit on the 4 a little bit. Let's keep on task. We hit on a 4 a little bit, but artistic, individualistic. These are the guys that remember the name of their kindergarten teacher because they yelled at them or didn't, or treated them wrong or something, and so they still hold this grudge. And kindergarten teacher passed away on. And they probably are a little excited about it on Facebook.
So just as a peek in on this, because I've been around a lot of these folks.
Yes.
And this is why on many levels I don't feel that I'm the true number 4. I've been around folks who
a lot of musicians,
and a lot of
in their
artists.
fields.
Like,
in their fields.
Yes, and what I think Rick Rubin's book touches on this to say that some people feel so deeply, and they feel hurt and pain. Kurt Cobain, or you talk about these John Lennon, like these typical, like the true great artists feel something on a level that we just many people don't. And so that's why I do feel a bit of a disconnect between that, is because these people they do connect with so many others because they're able to translate that deep sense of pain, if their skills are refined in whatever the medium is, be it paint or be it whatever, into something that people immediately go, yep, I feel that.
Jelly roll. Seriously.
There you go.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
That's why it's your wing and not your primary. Because as a 3-wing 4, you're not fully a 4, but there are elements of that individuality.
Yes.
And I would say also the depth. Sometimes a 4 can be a very deep person because they live in their head. And they live in their head, and they create art, and they do, and even on a team, they can be the ones who can see things differently than the way most people see them that can add value to an organization, right? And but
it just takes a few steps to get there.
It takes a few steps to get there. They need space a lot of times. They can be tough on a team because they're the only one that matters. And
they feel such a wide range of emotions. Like they're able to sit in emotions a lot longer. Like you're never going to sit in an emotion for a 10th of the amount of time that a 4 wants to sit in. Like they want to feel deep sadness and they want to sit in that deep sadness. They don't want you to come and be like, I'm going to cheer you up today. They want to sit in that emotion, like whatever it is.
And I'm just like, okay, what's next?
More emotions than most of us have ever even considered.
And can also be very self-destructive.
Absolutely. You know, these do have, more. Now they think there are fewer 4s in the world than any other number.
I could see that.
And they do have a tendency to over-identify with their emotions, which can lead to, depression and,
the emo kids. That's what I think of, the emo kids.
To an extreme.
Yeah.
For sure.
In high school, they were the emo kids. They're the emo kids. Okay.
You're not necessarily wrong. It's like,
it's like, oh, cool, you're writing poetry. Writing poetry. Okay. Reading Edgar Allan Poe. Cool.
Well, like as a business leader in a 4, they want to be valued for more than what they do. Whereas a 3 is like, I want you to acknowledge everything I've ever done that is good. A 4 is like, love me for me.
Old man rant for a second.
They might not want to wear the uniform shirt like you have.
That's right.
They're going to be like, or like,
don't put me in a box.
Yeah, exactly.
Is Steve Jobs somewhere in here or no?
I bet he's a 3-wing 4, if I had to guess.
That sounds right.
He cried a lot.
Yeah.
Every time he would have conflict or big blow-ups, he'd start crying.
But he got cracked. It's
crazy. Oh, yeah.
Got cracked. So
I always think of Bill Gates would be a 5-wing 4.
5-wing 4.
I don't know that Bill Gates. No, all I know is that video of them dancing in the 1998. The old white guy doing this right here. That's all I feel about being Bill Gates.
When they collaborated.
But old man rant for a second. I feel like the world now is centered around Enneagram 4s. What I mean by that is like this individualism kind of thing in the world, where the supreme thing are my feelings. Old man, I understand this. Drives the way the world works.
Politically
now.
correctness.
Politically correctness.
Yes.
My perspective is king.
Yes.
This is
not reality.
Not reality.
So, Jason, what type of communist are you?
Hey, I'm just gonna say this: we have we're only like halfway through, and we have like 20 minutes. So let's blow through these. All right,
sorry.
We're moving on to 4s. Have gotten enough. Sorry, 4s. Not to hurt. We see you. We see you. Your feelings are important. All right, number 5: thinker, observer, investigator. I have a business partner who is a very, very strong 5, and another close friend, very, very, very strong 5.
Yeah.
This is your most introverted of all.
Very introverted. Yes. When we do.
Enneagram.
Yeah, and that's funny because I'm the highest extrovert on the thing, and they're the lowest. But it's good. Gas and brakes.
They are much less emotionally expressive than anybody else. My friends that are a 5, I've looked back after learning this, and whenever I first met them, I realized I did everything wrong. Like I'm such a strong personality, and I'm like, woo, woo, you know. And so I come on strong, and I always, every 5 I've ever met, I thought they hate me. Like, you hate me. Well, I'm coming on like a bulldozer, which is their biggest nightmare. And they're like, ooh, you know,
oh yeah,
because they need that time. But then over time, they've become some of my closest friends. Once I figure out that.
Well, they love hanging out with me because when they're healthy, they're a 7, or unhealthy, they're a 7.
When they're unhealthy, they're a 7. They're
well, sorry, I like them. Yeah, I bring them to the party.
But they do feel like they have a limited amount of energy. Like a 5 genuinely feels like they can run out of energy, and so when you're planning things, you know, like you don't want to plan a work day and then a party together that night because they're like, that's too much people for me. Like I have to.
9's too.
Well, what I found too, though, is that a 5, what energizes me drains them. Right? They're like, oh, I want to be in a room reading a book for 3 hours, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you torturing yourself? And I'm like, hey, let's go to this social event, and then they're like, okay, I'm exhausted. I talked to people for an hour. I gotta go rest.
That's right.
But on your team, they're bringing that knowledge that you need because they're such researchers. They're looking into things, and they can teach all of us boundaries. Like they are the best with boundaries.
Very good executor. Like, so my business partner, who's a 5, I mean, he has a spreadsheet and it's updated every single day to the penny of his net worth. He's like, I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? He's like, oh, I already have a process for it. Here, look through this. It's like 10 pages long. I'm like, dude, give me the cliff notes. Like, you know,
you're like an information king.
Oh yes, and it's great.
Do these buckets, these categories, by way of introversion and extroversion, is there a spectrum for each of the categories, or are they generally categorically defined by where they are in extroversion or introversion?
So the way we really don't have time to get into this, but they call them subtypes, and that's where you get into the self-preservation, the social, and then what they call sexual, which is the one-on-one intimate. So really the subtypes. So like if you've met another 3, they may not look like you, act like you, because you're more social and they're more one-on-one subtype. And so you get differences and you look like a different number, and you can change, your subtype changes. You know, they say your Enneagram number does not ever change, but your subtype can change if you're feeling really social at one point. So I think that's where the introversion and extroversion get in, whether you're like about self-preservation, being social, or that.
But I would say in each triad, there's almost a number that lends itself to being very extroverted.
Absolutely.
Like 8, 3, and 7, right, in the 3. But that's just my observation.
Yeah, I think there's generalities there within. You see that 5 being generally not loving people.
What really surprised me working really closely with a 5 is that when they're healthy, they are an 8. And that's crazy because I'm a 7 and I avoid conflict. I don't want conflict. And so, you know, I'll be with the 5 and we're like, well, you know, we really just need to address this issue. He's like, all right, let's call him right now. And it puts him on speakerphone. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to put my head down. This is about to be some conflict and I don't want to deal with that.
They have done the research.
Yes. They're matter of fact. They know this is what has to be done.
Yes. And like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah.
Like, they're kind of a robot.
And they're like, let's get it over with so I can move on to the next thing. And I'm like,
I want to read a book.
And it's such a powerful voice because this person who is typically pretty quiet and sitting back and not, you know, speaking all the time, when they speak up, especially if they speak up with a powerful, I'm in charge
and
voice.
With research.
And with research, like everybody in the room is listening to them. Like you want 5s on your team. Like if you don't have 5s on your team, especially 5s in leadership, like you're really missing out. I remember I was a teacher and my friend, she's a 5, and the principal called us into the office, had this idea, what do y'all think about this? You know, I, as a 2, I'm like, here are all my ideas. I have 50 and I'm going to shoot them out like a machine gun. And she's like, I'll get back to you in a couple of days. You know, and I think that you need both of those because my ideas are just random. Her ideas were like so well thought out and looked into and thought about how it was going to affect everybody, and it just makes a difference.
I can get to a conclusion way faster than a 5, and so like I can be like, all right, this needs to happen. And a 5 is just not there yet. And it takes them a little while. You know, so it might take a couple of weeks, and
you'll get to it faster. They'll get to it better a lot of times.
Yes,
that's great.
That's what happens.
Yeah,
that's great.
Don't Don't put me in a box.
I'm not calling. I'm not. I'm a communist.
I would 100% agree with that, because like there are sometimes where conversations need to be had, and I'm just like, hey, you need to go have this conversation, because of who the person is.
Yes.
Because I'm not going to have the conversation well.
Yep.
You know.
Yes.
So.
Yep.
When a 5 is secure, that assertiveness comes out, and it is incredible.
Yep.
Incredible asset.
Yep. Good stuff. A 6, loyalist, skeptic. So, you know, 6s are great team members in that they
So let me ask
are
you something.
loyal. Okay.
They say that business owners, a 6 is their least favorite employee.
Okay.
But they are also the best. They just don't like them because 6s have so many questions that it can feel very undermining to a leader.
Okay.
Very annoying.
Yeah.
Why don't you just trust my leadership?
Yeah.
But they are also your most loyal, dedicated employees. So would y'all? Do you have a problem with the questions of a 6?
I'm a little skewed because out of like 1s and 6s, those are the most unhealthy I've been around.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just their unhealthiness is like straight in my face because I'm a 7.
It makes a big
but it's like, you know, for a 6, I'll go to a 6 and say, hey, I want you, we don't have your processes written down. Write down your processes. And they think I'm about to get fired. Right?
Well, that's
and so it's like,
yes.
so frustrating. They're like, why do you need me to do it? Why do you need that? Why? And I'm like, look, please just do it. You know?
Yeah.
And so it's like one of my employees at one time, we actually went through this, and she realized she was a 6, and she was like, that is why I'm so scared to have my desk right here, because if a shooter comes in our office, I'm the first person they'll see.
That's
And I'm like, I'm like, what?
Yes.
But that's who you want as your risk assessors.
Yeah.
Like, but even with a new idea, like you have to be really careful with 6s on your staff. Like if you have this new idea, Mr. I'm full of all these ideas, you can't just throw that at a 6. Like you have to prepare them for that. You have to send them the details, all of your thoughts, and you have to prepare yourself for them having a ton of questions.
Yes. Well, they tend to
like
you're attacked.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, one of the biggest currency you can have as a leader is truth. And the most valuable thing that the 6s, the way that I've seen it, can bring to the table is truth. And it's all about the method it's all about the medium. How are you bringing me the truth? Because if you're bringing me the truth in a way that's calm and level-headed, and like that's lifeblood for a leader, you've got to hear the truth. Problem is when it comes on this boatload of negativity. And that's when, for me, I take it out. I start to go, man, I got to get this negative person out of here.
Yeah.
And I've had conversations with people recently saying, I need the truth. Please say the truth, but don't come in here and bring a negative, like, everything sucks and this is all terrible, because that's got to go.
It's a bandwidth thing. Like, we need critical feedback. We can't live in critical feedback. And so there's got to be, in a sense, the meeting once a week where this is your time to shine. Come in with your questions, with your pushbacks. But I can have it every day. Like,
and and for me, it's like, bring that, but have a solution. Like, have thought through a solution. Don't just throw that on me as a 7. You know. But then because I have a 6 wing, and so like they tend to stall solving problems that don't exist yet. And that's frustrating for me as a 7.
Yes.
I'm like, hey, we just had a 30-minute conversation. We don't even know if this is going to happen. Like, we've solved something, literally, we don't even know.
What's coming.
Yeah. And it's worst case scenario, right? Oh, employee got in a wreck. Well, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. They're like, well, we don't know that. We have no clue.
We have no clue.
Let's wait until that happens, then we'll solve it. Instead of literally being paralyzed for the whole day, wondering if the worst case scenario is going to play out.
When I'm unhealthy, this is where I go.
Okay.
And so I can feel that sometimes, when 4 or 5 things hit in a row that are negative, I'll go to this
and I do too.
And I'll shut down. And
it is paralyzing.
It is.
Because it's really like, and that's why I always go back to the scramble. Is like, okay, we could live in a 1-bedroom apartment. My wife would still love me.
Yes.
Wouldn't be convenient, but we could do it. We could make it work. And it's like, dude, I just told you like one thing. Like, why are you already there?
Yes.
So,
I think when you're thinking about how your employees interact with each other with sixes, or y'all interacting with sixes, like remembering to not belittle their fears and their anxiety. That is something that I had to teach. The Enneagram helped me to see, because I just want to look at them. I just am not a fearful person. I am not like an anxious person. And so I just want to be like, what the heck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like, just get over it. Like, let's move on. This is not a big deal.
Could see,
you cannot do that.
I could see so why you would think someone would come in the middle of the day and shoot up the office. I can understand that.
Can you see? I can't even.
No, I'm being facetious. I'm like, it's hard to get there. But okay, I get that. Oh.
But I think another thing is that we have to make sure that when they're overreacting, that we don't meet their overreacting with overreacting.
Yes.
Like you were talking about that non-anxious presence.
And that's why 6 has to be surrounded by some of because they will get in the negativity and just sit in it.
The culture.
Yes, change the culture. Yes. And I can see that too, because going back to the discussion of me always putting water on everybody's fire when they were excited, is I'm a big questioner, and I can even find that somebody's like, hey, we're thinking about doing this. My brother, he'll call me with ideas. So I go, what about this? And I'll just poke a few holes in it, and then I'll get off the phone.
I want that movie.
I'm like, man, I bet he was so excited about that, and I just like rained on the parade. Have you thought about this? You thought about this? And so I have to be careful with that too.
But they do love to laugh and make jokes, and they really are like going to be your lasting best friends and your best, most loyal employees. And so I don't want to like.
Oh yeah,
I see that wing in you has grown, that loyalist wing over the years, and you've really matured in that too. So.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate that.
You stop going to bed and you got more loyal.
All right, go to 7. We'll wrap up. We have about 10 more minutes.
Do you want to tell us about yourself and how awesome you are?
Yes. So a 7 is a glutton.
Glutton, yeah.
A glutton.
Okay.
Yes. What is currently in my life is never enough to fulfill it. I always have to have more. And so it's just funny. So like we go, for most people, a weekend getaway to Dallas is just a weekend getaway. Yep. For me, I had to have every minute accounted for to make sure we make the most of that 72 hours without kids. Okay. We're not just going to go sit around. We're going to have stuff to do, purposeful things.
This is where
make the most of it.
So me and my wife are going to Dallas next weekend without kids.
Yeah.
And my plan is to sit by a pool for 2 days.
Yeah, that's fine. As long as it's planned.
Interesting.
But here's my question: Are y'all using the weekend getaway hack for parents? Are you leaving Friday morning after you drop them off at school?
No, because my wife's a teacher.
But see, you've missed out. I mean, it's worth the day off. I'm just saying you got to maximize on it.
We live in the real world.
Okay, but what I would say is,
be ready to take that
like for me, so we're going to leave Friday and we're going. Like it starts the minute we leave the house. Like I have a podcast I've already filmed for us to listen to, or a book for us to listen to. It starts.
I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, it is like there. We have it planned out now. So I've had to dial that back a little bit, but yeah. So that's.
Well,
okay.
Why doesn't Leighton want to feel pain?
Because it's not fun. He wants to maximize his fun. He wants to.
I'm joking.
It is because of his childhood. Everything goes back to our childhood, right?
Yeah.
And so, but that's it. Like he wants to maximize fun.
Yes.
And sadness is just not fun.
So no numbers like pain. 7s will rearrange their life to avoid it.
I think some 4s like pain.
Yeah. Well, and 8s like conflict. Yeah. Like for an 8, conflict is bonding, and for a 7, it is just devastating, right? Yeah. And so it is. But yeah. So
7s have a unique gift of being able to reframe. Sadness and bad things, which can be very helpful.
Big deal.
But I do have a question. I brought this up to you a while back. I don't know if you remember, but I was listening to something Enneagram, and they were saying that the worst business owners are 7s.
Yep.
That their best advice for a 7 who starts a business is to find someone to take over the business as quickly as possible.
Yes.
And it's because of a lot of the things that you've said, because you have these constantly new ideas, and most employees can't take that. They can't change at that rapid pace. They can't. Yes. And so most entrepreneurs, of the best entrepreneurs, are 7s.
Yes,
but their best advice is to then find somebody to run that business.
Well, this goes back into the E-Myth. right? A book that we reference a lot. The E-Myth is every successful organization has to have an entrepreneur, which is a 7. Has to have a manager, which is a 5, or not a 7. And a technician, somebody that's like actually carrying out the work. And so I just know that's my role. Yes, because early on, when you're an entrepreneur, you fulfill all roles a lot of times. And you just have to, like, that's just draining for me. Daily operations are draining for me. And so they laugh at me. They'll be like, oh yeah, Leighton will just get up and walk out of a meeting. Well, when it becomes unapplicable to me and it's like they're hired to do this job, I just get up and go. I don't need to be there anymore.
It's like your brother tries to learn that. And
so 7, life at the party. Like to have fun. Does avoid pain. Overindulges.
You don't like people to tell you what to do.
Do not like rules. Everything's great.
You want people to come to you with the perks of what they're like, hey, I have this thing. Like, don't come to me with all the negative. Like, hey, there's the perks of this change.
Yes. Show me the good stuff.
It's all in the way that you're framing it.
Yes. Always fishing for new thing.
Yes. I like to avoid pain. So when someone leaves my organization, they will quit or whatever, right?
You feel that sting.
I feel the sting, like, oh, I'm not good enough. But then I reframe it. You know what? It was good that they left. They drank so much coffee. Oh my gosh, we're going to save some money.
which once again is helpful, but can also be unhelpful.
Oh, you avoid it.
You
don't process.
You don't
the
process
pain.
it. Learn from it.
Yeah.
So in health, like when a 7 is healthy, they are a really grounded 5. Like instead of I'm going to go skydiving, you're going to sit back and I'm going to research.
Learn knowledge.
Is this you planning a trip?
Knowledge, yes.
Yep.
But when you're unhealthy, you become very critical, very pessimistic.
It happened Sunday at Wingstop. Waited an hour for my order with my kids in the car, and I'm just sitting here. I'm up on the counter being like, hey, why isn't someone here bagging the stuff that's ready? Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Wasn't good?
No, the food was great. Wingstop's great.
The experience.
Well, yeah, the person that bags is on the phone or on break. And I'm like, but I'm like, well, it just bothered me, So anyways.
I get it.
But yeah, ones, that's the when I see my oneness come out the most, usually it involves food and restaurants.
Wingstop.
Right. It usually involves food and it's like a bad waitress, I mean, I'm so critical of them. Having to wait. That's why I do not go to restaurants without a reservation.
Because you don't want to wait.
I don't want to wait. I want that because that's 30 minutes. I'm never getting back.
It's a waste of
Let's eat and let's go. So, first of all of my friends love going on trips with us.
Yes,
they're like, "This is great." Leighton has it all planned out.
Yeah. So long for the ride.
Yeah. And I love planning it.
One restaurant hack though is get there at 5 p.m.
Yeah. Jason.
Jason. I like that one a lot too.
Let me guess, Piccadilly or
no.
He does go to eat early.
I do go at 5.
He does go at 5
because you go to 5, you're done by 6:30. If you want to go home or go to like a movie or something, you're good to go, or you just go home.
Yeah. To me, it's like it builds up to dinner. Let's go. Let's go. Play a little putt-putt. Go.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. It's gone.
Sorry.
All right.
We're moving on to an 8.
Let's go to 8. Great transition.
Another business closed. Economy.
The economy. Fun away.
50 Cent, bring back the putt-putt. All right. All right. We have. Hey, we're almost done. We're ending on the 8s. Here we go. What are the good things about 8s? Because I have a hard time. I'm a 7, and 8s just bother me so much.
I have surrounded myself with 8s in my life.
Yes.
And so, they really do bring a sense of strength and power.
Clarity.
They're really great at creating order. They, just get a bad rap because they have such easy access to their anger, and they're willing to have confrontations. And that's not a problem for them like it is most people. And so, in our, we're Christians, and so we came up with Christian, you can't call them a bad word, so you call them an 8-hole, because that is the perception that they get sometimes of how they act.
Yes.
But I'm surrounded by 8s in my life that I love, and I really do think that a healthy 8 is one of the most beautiful things on the Enneagram.
Yeah.
But an unhealthy 8 can be the most terrifying.
Yeah. And they're the most noticeable.
Absolutely.
Right, because they're the loudest.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's I can identify an 8 really quickly.
Yep.
Yeah. They underestimate the impact that they have on others.
Yeah,
they underestimate their tone of voice.
Yes. So what I've seen is that conflict a conflict for an 8 is bonding. They will have conflict with any number and be like, wow, we really got through that. Yeah. While the other person's just devastated and defeated.
Yeah, like an 8 could be talking to a 9, like myself, and be so abrasive with their words and direct with their words, and maybe even loud. Yeah. And think that, it's a great conversation, and the 9's crushed. Like, what just happened? And it's just because of the power of their voice.
Yeah.
And so
the healthy 8s, but man, unhealthy ones are very identifiable. Yeah.
And most of the stuff that they're doing that is taken as abrasive is meant out of love. Like, they are the most generous people. They are the most protecting of others. Very, very genuine. But their need to control, like control's a real thing for them. It can come across in a really negative way.
Abrasive.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and they're pretty loud about it.
And I think that's what, for teammates, that's what I usually advise teammates of, like, the 8 on your team. Like, you cannot take their abrasive voice personally. Yeah. It is not a personal attack. Yeah. Like, that is just their voice. Yeah. And I love looking out in an audience and seeing that, but they didn't mean that again.
They can't have awareness about it, and that's where
I think it's ground rules for the team.
It's
like, well, there's we're going to do this, but we don't go beyond this line. We don't take a personal nature. We're not going to yell. We're not those kind of things. Yeah. Those ground rules are important for an 8 to have. Those boundaries.
Got it. Yep.
Yeah.
Because it's never helpful to have somebody yelling or making personal attacks. It's just not helpful. And so if you are an 8.
Yeah. They're really great at exercising power. So putting an 8 in leadership is great because they don't mind having those hard conversations, that HR conversation that nobody else wants to have. They establish order. Like, that's a really important thing for
Speaking
them.
of Trump, I would imagine he's an 8.
I would, if I had to bet, that's what I would say.
They would say Bill Clinton is a 7. I've read that Bill Clinton's a 7.
I can see that for sure.
That he
glutton. He's had some gluttonous behaviors, and so. But anyway,
that's another one. Let's do the office and president. Which president are you and what their Enneagram is?
W's a 9.
Yeah,
that's what
Peacemaker.
Yeah.
Abe Lincoln. What you think?
Abe Lincoln, a 3.
1.
Yeah, there's debate between him being a 3 or a 2.
Oh, really?
3 or a 2? Really?
Well, he helped end slavery.
Oh, well, okay.
He failed a lot. I'm not sure if a 1 would have gotten back up after they lost like 8 elections.
That's true. That's true.
So, all right. Well, there we go. Nice. Let's talk about history next time. This is great. Communist history teacher over here.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Maybe do a special election podcast, a live election podcast. All right. Fun stuff.
That's fun.
All right,
I've learned so much.
Yeah, and you missed the first episode,
I know,
so you came in at the end.
Kicking myself.
Yeah, you have to go back and listen to it.
Yeah. I don't listen.
Yeah. Do we have any shout outs? Anything we'll talk? So one thing we like to do, Jason's probably already done this on a past episode, but we do like to highlight local business that we just really like, we respect, we admire. Mine tend to be about food, but so what's a local business you want to give a shout out to here?
I think mine, maybe the educator in me and the learner in me, I love businesses who love their employees enough to invest in them and invest in their learning and their growth. And so I think about some businesses that have asked me to come and speak to their people several times, like Southern Roots Dentistry, like Dr. Lauer. Listening to his story, he would be a great person on your podcast, by the way. His story is fantastic, even though he's an LSU guy. Go Tigers. That they spend time monthly or quarterly really investing in their employees. Pediatric therapy partners, I've gone to talk to them, and that is something that they're, because businesses, to put your money into loving on your employees enough to help them be better employees, to be better leaders, to be just better humans. And I know you do this a lot, like with your people. It just, stuff like that matters. And that's the kind of stuff that I think is going to grow a business more than anything else, is
Southern Roots Dentistry.
In your people.
I like it. Southern Roots Dentistry. Did you name another one?
Pediatric therapy partners. Okay. Emily Watkins, she just made 40 under 40. And so she'd be a great one to have. Another female business leader that's well spoken and cares for her people.
Yes.
It's good.
You have any you want to shout out just off the top of your top of mind?
I've got nothing off the top of my mind. I just froze.
Applebee's.
He was fixing to say Ruby Tuesdays, but you were in it.
Ruby Tuesdays.
No, I don't do Tuesdays.
Dude, why you don't like salads?
Yeah.
Ruby Tuesdays. if we're taking businesses out of restaurants out of this town, Ruby Tuesdays should be here longer than some of these other ones.
Oh, for sure.
That's fine. That's fine.
Those croutons.
Yeah. That's fine.
All right.
And the fake glasses, that you would pick up, and you're like, whoa,
yeah. Oh yeah. You think it's like
heavy.
a big mug.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's plastic.
That's hilarious. All right. Anything else? We good? Josh,
We're good.
Hope your day gets better.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
See you guys.
Always fun.